Well, here's what I want to do. I want to jump forward and then come back. I want to jump forward to what are some of the benefits? Like at SprintRay, you've had phenomenal growth that's been tied to this process and these key behaviors, the three C's. Tell us a little bit about the growth, the ROI that you've seen from this, and then dig in a little bit deeper into what you did.
Okay. So our journey started out in 2020, right in the midst of COVID, because the company had to send everyone home, except for the people that we couldn't send home, which were like the warehouse workers that were shipping and people who were working in the labs and stuff like that. So let me just back up and say SprintRay is a 3D printing company. So we do not print 3D objects. We actually design and manufacture 3D printers. And those 3D printers are used by dentists to create mouth guards, to create surgical guides, and to print crowns. Here's an example of a 3D printed crown. And to print teeth, you can actually print an entire mouth of teeth. And so just to give you an example of how they've innovated in the world, it used to be that if you went and you had to get a crown in your mouth covering a bad tooth, you would have to do the mold. Then you have to wait 3 weeks with a temporary that kept falling out until you finally got the crown put in your mouth and hopefully it fit and did the job. Today with SprintRay's technology, they can print 3 crowns in 8 minutes. So they scan the person's mouth and they can have the crown in the person's mouth, perfect fit, perfect color in less than an hour. So that's how the evolution of 3D printing has come about. So during COVID, they had to send everyone home. They were concerned about their culture being impacted. At that time, they were also concerned about what was going to happen in the market. They only had 40 people at the time. An interesting thing happened when the world shut down. Dentists, for the first time, had a little bit of free time on their hands. And so they started doing research on what is this new world called digital dentistry. And the company saw its revenues double in less than a year. And then the next year, we experienced 250% growth and then 200% growth the next year after that. And then now we've stabilized at about 30 to 40% growth a year. And so the company went from around 40 people to 600 people pretty much in about an 18-month period. So along the way, the CEO brought me in. At the time, I started as a consultant before I was the chief people officer. And the big concern was, were they going to lose their culture when they sent everyone home and with this rapid growth? So the first thing that I did was a survey and start doing key interviews. So with only 40 people, I was able to interview quite a few people and a broad swath of people at all different levels. And one of the things that we immediately discovered is there were not more than 2 or 3 people that could define the culture the same. By then we had 60 people in the company. It had grown from 40 to 60. There were basically 30 different definitions of what the SprintRay culture was. So the first step was to define the culture. So what do we want our culture to be? And we did that by going through a process that I call identifying everything that's in the culture now, and then breaking it down into what are the things that we want to keep. So that's the intentional side of the culture. And what are the things that have crept into the culture that we don't want to have? That's the accidental side of the culture. So basically, a lot of companies will go, oh, we don't have that much of a culture in our company. No. Every company has a culture, and you have 2 choices. You're either going to let culture happen, in which I call that the accidental culture. It happens whether you like it or not. Or you're going to have an intentionally defined culture. Not a lot of companies go down the path of intentionally defining their culture. But if you look at your purpose and then you intentionally define your culture to match the purpose, then you are 2/3 of the way to where you need to be.